Hey there, folks. Button time. All right, so I got some brand new buttons in from LabFifteen Co., formerly known as Jelly Belly, if you've heard of them, but they had to change their name for reasons. I got pocket buttons, right? These things look sick. Look at that. Look how cool that is. I don't know if he's going to be making this specific set regularly, but I requested this one and they came out really nice. I'm totally into it. But anyway, with something like this, you get the 4 face buttons, D-pad, and then the 3 bottom buttons, I guess. I don't know. Start, select, and analog button. And I'm going to go ahead and install them into this pocket that I have opened once. And by opened once, I just mean the box. I genuinely haven't even booted this thing. I really ought to have. But hey, look, it works. That's convenient. I don't need to do that. I've already done that. Yes, I know we gotta update it. What do these things come with these days? 1.0b. Alright, so that's a little bit of an older version, but that's okay. I really only use these things to play carts anyhow, so. Get all the sharp things out of here. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and install these buttons. I have done a video on this before. I've gone over like nearly everything with this analog. Not this one specifically. I bought one of the clear red ones. I think it's neat. It wasn't necessarily the one I wanted, but I figured it was gonna be one of the less popular colors, and so that's the one I went for. And as it turns out, that's exactly what happened. But oh well, I like red. Red's good. So to take this thing apart, we're going to need a Torx T6 bit. And you know what? Hang on. Before I take this thing apart, I always say to do this. So let's actually do this. Let's test it and make sure, at the very least, it boots carts and that I have a full set of working buttons. And indeed I do. That's probably good enough. All right, so these button sets come with only the buttons on the face of the console. They do not replace the power, volume up, and volume down, or the L and R buttons. The reason it does not replace the power, volume up, and volume down buttons is because the board, the button board behind them, you can actually see mine because it's a little transparent. That board is glued into the console, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get out. I don't think most people are going to want to rip their console apart, like literally rip it apart, glue and all. And then the L and R buttons, I think they're just not in a convenient shape to cast. I have a bit. Where's my screwdriver? Oh, here it is. But otherwise, it's not too bad. So T6, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then with those 4 screws removed, you just remove the battery door here, and then we're going to go ahead and unplug this battery. You're not supposed to pull from the cables, but I have a hard time gripping this thing otherwise. And let's get the L and R button board out of here. I don't know the preferred way to do this, but how I do it, there's these 3 little plastic clips holding it in. You've got one here, and then one at the bottom. I think it's easier to start with the top ones. Just push on it just a hair while lifting up from the button itself until the whole board comes up. Got to do both sides. And then once you've got it released, pull it out. And be careful, that last one is sometimes a little tough. And then once you've got it released, be careful. You don't want to pull it straight up. I'm going to tilt it forward just a little bit. Okay. Actually, that's not so bad. The wire slack is not where I thought it was. It used to be under the plastic, or maybe I'm making that up, I don't know. But it's not too bad. I'm gonna go ahead and release the flat flex cable here and pull this out, maybe. There we go. And then I've got the whole board out. Easy peasy. And from here, be careful of this cable. It's not the easiest thing to remove while the back is still on, but we can lift the back up and then slide it down. You notice there's a gap up here now, and then it should lift straight off the back of the console. Just like that. You don't need to remove the battery. You don't need to remove that sticker under there. That's a trap. Set that aside. Now we can remove this screw. Oh, they've changed it. It's a different screw now. On the older models, it's also a T6, but on this one, this is a Phillips. And pull that out. Nice and small guy. And we also need to disconnect these 3 ribbons here. Flip up the bails for the 2 speakers and the power board, and just slide my tweezers in there and yank this bad boy out. Oh, I forgot this one. And the button board. And with these 3 ribbons and that screw out, we are free to start removing the board. If you have a micro SD card in there, remove it now if you haven't already. You should have done that from the beginning, but I forgot to mention it because I just literally pulled this thing out of the box. And now we have, before I remove it, it is going to come out, 2 things to consider. First, the LCD is still connected to this by a very short cable. And second, the board has a thermal pad over one of the FPGAs that to sink heat into the LCD itself. It might take a little, it might not come up like immediately. You might have to, give it a gentle tug and then it'll release. But mine came up really easily, probably because the thermal pad is brand new and hasn't actually had a chance to do its job yet. And from here, I'm gonna pull it straight up until it clears my ribbons. We only have a very small amount of space. This is as far as I'm pulling it up. I'm gonna peek under here. Oh, we have a lot more space than I thought. Okay. So I can tilt this thing up, just like this. I'm gonna hold it at an angle so you can see. And from here, you can either reach in there and disconnect that screen, or since all we're doing is swapping out the buttons, just, be careful and hold it like this, and you'll be fine. I'm gonna try and twist this out of the way, at least to one side, so you can see what I'm doing though. But don't do this. I'm just showing you guys so you see what's going on. So I'm gonna pull the D-pad and the membrane out, swap the new D-pad in, reinstall the membrane. Do the start and select and analog buttons. And these are keyed. They only go in one way. Oh. Mine in particular have a little bit of sprue attached. That's not the right one. That goes in there. Next one goes right there. And then the last one goes in. Yeah. We can reinstall that. I'm going to twist this over the other way. And these buttons, there are two different buttons here. Well, there's four, obviously, but there's two different molds for these buttons, and the keys are different for each of those. So the 3 key buttons go in the X and Y position because they are concave, and then the 2 key buttons go in the A and B position, and these are convex. Oh, that's upside down. We're going to reinstall our membrane here. And then that's pretty much it. We can go ahead and reassemble. This is the board that's glued in. Actually, let's check and see if it's still glued in on this model. Oh, I don't think it is. Maybe it is. It's wiggling around a lot more than it did in the other one. But it's also not coming out. Oh, yeah, it is. Ooh! On the newer models, it's not glued in. That makes things a lot easier. Still, I don't have replacement buttons, so there's no sense in doing that, but good to know nonetheless. All right, I gotta lift this up again, make sure both of the ribbons are over the board. And then I'm gonna fold that just like that, so I can get this last one here. And we're good to go to reassemble. Put the metal screw in here. Just like that. Ah! Oh yeah, that looks sick. I'm into that. All right. Let's get these ribbons reattached here. This one goes in just like that. This one goes in just like that. Be exceptionally careful. If you break this ribbon here, this is a very simple board to replace, except that there aren't any replacements. In theory, someone could make one. That someone is not going to be me. I'm not doing that. But it's literally just 3 tactile switches and a ground. So very easy to do if one were so inclined. But because the power button is on this board, if you damage this board, you will not be able to use your console until you replace it. Oof, okay. I've got that, and now let's reinstall the back. So for the back, we just gotta line up that ribbon cable, pull it through, and then you notice there's a little bit of a gap here because we don't have that lined up exactly. I'm gonna set this down. So this is easier to do with 2 hands here. I'm flexing the back up around the middle. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my fingers down right about where the cart slot is to hold the top portion flush with the console, and then I'm lifting the back up because it needs to clear this JTAG port and the battery connector here. So I'm going to slide up with my fingers here while holding it from the bottom, and then I'm going to let the bottom seat. And that's it. easy peasy. Plug the battery back in. Actually, before we plug the battery back in, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's plug this in. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this on camera. Because it's on the bottom of the board. But just seat that in there, get that closed. I'm gonna try get that clipped. It has to be lined up exactly. I think it's easier if we, hang on. You'd think I'd have figured this out by now with how many times I've had these things apart, but whatever. Okay, there we go. I think it's easier if we get the front clips, angle the board in so that it's already under the front clips, and then we just push it down here. No? It does not want to clear. There we go. Just need a little bit more force than I wanted to give it. But that is nice and locked into place, and now we can reconnect the battery. Only goes in that one way. And we gotta get these hooks in there, and then it just slides on, close like that. Ooh, not quite, because that wasn't seated the whole way. Okay. There we go. Easy. And you really only need these two bottom screws, but you might as well reinstall all of them. These do not need to be tight. They just need to be snug. To reinstall screws in plastic shells, or, well, anything really, you always want to get that bad boy inserted and then spin it backwards until you feel it drop into place or you hear a click, or both. So let's try that out. Hear that click? I felt it drop into place. That means it's properly threaded, and now I can send it home. And I'm just snugging it up. It doesn't need to be tight, and because we're screwing into plastic, the best way to preserve the threads here is, we'll back that up until it clicks. Try that again. There we go. And then I screw it down until the screwdriver bottoms out, and then I back it up a quarter turn. That's it. That's not the screw. Where'd the screw go? Oh, here it is. Just like that. Try it out. See what happens. Still boots. That's a good sign. Oh, yeah, Game Boy doesn't have X or Y or L and R. So far, all of those work. Let's put a GBA game in here. This isn't going to help me test L and R, though. Wait, R is help in this game. Never mind. We're good. So L should be the confirm button. Indeed, that's working. And then, if I recall, R is help or something. I don't remember. This thing is so absurdly loud. Ah, R is not help when you have it set to L. Yeah, button mode help. There we go. And R is working. Excellent. So now these two buttons, the X and Y buttons, should also be L and R. So if I, well, oh, maybe not. I thought that's how that worked. Maybe it's a setting we have to do in here. Controls. I think it was that. Mirror LR. Yep. Excellent. And so now I know both of those buttons are working too. You could, of course, just use a button test ROM for Game Boy Advance. I don't have one handy because I don't... My flash cart's somewhere in some Game Boy somewhere. But, yeah, it seems to work. Feels fine. Feels just like the OEM buttons. And in this case, they look really cool too. At least I'm into that. LabFifteen is making several different styles of this button. I believe this one is called the Galaxy, or they're calling it Galaxy, or something space themed. I don't know. I like how it comes out. Like how it looks. This is not doing them justice, I'm sorry. But look at their pictures. Their pictures look way better than mine do. But there are several other styles. I showed off these green ones to some people earlier, but there's also, you know, like pearlescent. There's these silver-backed ones. Other more different pearlescent. And then these purple ones that I'm also forgetting the name of, but these are also really cool too. These are probably going in something, but either way, it's pretty easy. It's a little intimidating at first if you don't know how to pull one of these things apart, and if you're not familiar, if you're not experienced working the flat flex cables, I don't recommend learning on your expensive and hard to replace console because they can be extremely fiddly, they're very delicate, and if you break them, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but if you have experience soldering the FFCs, then chances are pretty good you also have experience using them. So, the opposite applies too, I believe, in that if you're not experienced with them, you're going to have a hard time soldering them too. So, you know, try and get a feel for how much pressure it takes to release the bail and to reinstall cables and such so that you don't damage your console. That's my opinion, at least. If you want to go ahead and take a crack at it, well, I don't see any cops around. I'm not gonna stop you. I also haven't played this game in months. I don't remember where I was and where I was going. Luckily, there's a help menu. No, I'm kidding. Let's see, I have 2 badges, so I think I need to... Isn't this guy Surge or whatever? Yeah, Lieutenant Surge. I thought he was the 3rd gym. Which means I need Cut. I don't know. I'll figure it out later. I don't really want to play this right now. But, easy peasy. Nice, good, everything's working. Everybody happy, and now I have a cool set of red buttons that's probably going into one of my black pockets here. This one, huh? How about? And I'll have to pull the shoulder buttons out of this thing, I think. But don't judge me. I like these. They're cool. But also I needed one for making my own custom buttons, and then I wanted one to have stock buttons, and then they made cool red ones, so now I have duplicates. But that's my problem. Don't worry about it. But the red ones are definitely going in that black one because they look sick. But anyway, I think that's all I've got for now. I will go ahead and post links to this stuff down in the description. Of course, this adds 0 functionality to your console, so it's not like, you know, it's not going to affect anything. It's purely aesthetic. So if you think, you know, enhancing the aesthetic is worth the cost of these things and the price of admission, which is not only the cost of the buttons, but getting them installed as well, then by all means, oh, there's no cartridge in there. That's not going to work. And by all means, you know, they feel just like stock. They work totally fine. I did not bottom out those screws properly. Let's try that again. Maybe I loosened them too much. Yeah. We'll get there. There we go. I don't like how tight that feels, though. I'm sure it's fine. I can visually see that they're snugged up now. But there we go. Easy peasy. So yeah, thanks to Retro Game Repair Shop for sending these my way, and of course thanks LabFifteen for making them in the first place, especially my request. These things are sick. I love it. I'm kind of excited to play this, even though it's gonna feel exactly the same as it did before. At least it looks cool now. Looks cooler. What if I replace the back with... Okay, what if I replace the mid-frame with black and then the back itself with white? I'm gonna make a Pokeball. I have both a black pocket and a white pocket. Decisions. Anyway, I'll work that out later though. Y'all don't need to sit here and watch me do this nonsense even more than I already have. So, yeah, links in the description. I'm happy with them. They're pretty good. LabFifteen does really fantastic work. I don't show off enough of his stuff, even though I've used it before. There's so many cool buttons out there, you know? My friend makes buttons. I make buttons. LabFifteen makes buttons. I like buttons. Buttons are cool. Anyway, catch you all next time. Thanks for watching.